Well, good morning, Facebook. Today is the 27th of May, Wednesday, I think. Yeah, it's Wednesday. Anyway, the time is 11:28 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Losing track of what day of the week it is. Man, it's happening a lot more to me lately because there's very little that I have to do with my time. Some apparently good news with this live producer. I'm now able to use the current live producer on Facebook, and it does recognize all the equipment I'm using. For a long time there, it was telling me that I couldn't. There was issues with the browser. There was issues just left and right that were making it difficult for me to do this. But apparently everything is now back to normal, and I'm pretty glad about that. So I'm going to keep things a little bit brief today. I have just the typical updates in terms of numbers. I'm not going to look at worldwide figures today. I think I did a pretty thorough examination of that yesterday. Brazil, I will say, Brazil's becoming a new global hotspot. It is nearly 400,000 cases as of today, something like 375,000 as of this morning, climbing very rapidly. But the United States is still by far in the lead. We are currently reporting 1,735,764 positive or confirmed cases. The death toll in our country has risen to 101,392. State of New York accounts for 373,622 cases, 29,451 fatalities. State of Washington is now up to 21,209 positive or confirmed cases. Our state is currently reporting 1,086 fatalities. I'm going to quickly look at other states that are significant to me. Nebraska. Nebraska is all the way up to 12,619 cases. I read an article from my old hometown in Douglas County, Nebraska, Omaha, that Douglas County cases are surging. Understandable, Douglas County is by far the most populous county in the state of Nebraska. Nebraska is now reporting a loss of 153 lives. Here's another interesting discrepancy. I keep on pointing these out. The state of Missouri, where Nebraska was reporting, again, 12,619 cases, Missouri's reporting 12,668. So they're very, very close to each other, relatively speaking. And yet, while Nebraska is reporting 153 fatalities, Missouri is reporting 701. That's more than 3 times. Well, heck, that's over 4 times. So Missouri's reporting 4 times as many fatalities and pretty much exactly the same number of cases. I'm seeing examples of this all over the place. The least affected state as of right now is Alaska. They are reporting 411 cases, 10 deaths. Now, as relates to what's going on here in Washington, I think Thurston County, which is where Olympia is, has submitted an application to move on to Phase 2 of Washington State's 4-phase reopening. But it doesn't appear that the most populous counties here in Washington are likely to reopen into Phase 2 on the 1st of June. This is directly from King 5. This was published today. No, I'm sorry, this was published yesterday. Though there's still some uncertainty, Washington state officials say it's unlikely all counties will be in Phase 2 of Governor Inslee's recovery plan next week. Washington State Department of Health says all counties in the state will probably not be able to safely reopen stores, restaurants, and services when Governor Jay Inslee's current stay home, stay healthy order expires on May the 31st. Some counties continue to have large numbers of COVID-19 cases and will not be in a position to move on to the next phase of reopening, according to the Department of Health. Officials previously said June 1st would be the earliest the state would move on to Phase 2. Phase 2 of Washington's four-phase recovery plan allows for more gathering with 5 people or fewer per week, increased outdoor recreation, along with more businesses being allowed to resume operations, including restaurants at 50% capacity. The story just goes on with the obligatory citations of previously reported information. As of Tuesday morning, a total of 21 counties have been approved to move into Phase 2. And then 3 more counties, Clallam, Kitsap, and again Thurston, are eligible to apply. Now, some people are pointing out that there needs to be an adjustment in the criteria for allowing people to move into Phase 2. You know, fewer than 10 new cases reported per 100,000 residents sustained across 14 days. Some people are saying that long-term care facilities and nursing homes should not be counted amongst the number of new cases, because it really skews the overall curve for the rest of the residents of the state who aren't crammed into these facilities. And these facilities, of course, are full of people who are uniquely vulnerable to this disease. That doesn't apply to most other residents of Snohomish, King, and Pierce counties. There's news stories out there about county officials hoping to persuade the governor to make an adjustment. My opinion of the governor sort of tilts me in the direction of not really thinking the governor's going to be too receptive to any suggestion that he ease his approach to this. So, today I'd like to talk about masks, facial coverings. It's become a subject of quite a bit of debate and quite a bit of impassioned arguments, especially on social media. A friend of mine posted onto her social media that while she understands and respects a person's decision to wear a cloth facial covering, that she herself was not going to wear it, and cited that she is within her rights to choose not to do so. In the United States, wearing cloth facial coverings is a recommendation, not a requirement. But something I've noticed is the eagerness with which people are shamed and called out for choosing not to wear a mask. Some of the back and forth that I've seen in the comment thread, specifically under my friend's post on Facebook, they are condescending right to the core, expressing outrage, mocking and ridiculing people, saying, "What is wrong with you? Don't you care?" And it's not just happening amongst friends on social media platforms. There's examples of it within the news media. If you ever watch the White House press briefings, which have now resumed, they had been halted for a long time, and now the new press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, has resumed them, and she's doing them almost every day. There is not a single one of these briefings that doesn't include some reporter drawing attention to the fact that the press secretary herself, the president himself, has chosen not to wear masks in certain situations. And it's always followed up with questions about, don't you think that's irresponsible? Doesn't the president care? Doesn't he care about science? there was an amusing story that came out of Wisconsin. A reporter for MSNBC was at a lake in Wisconsin that was crowded with holiday revelers. The reporter was on camera wearing a mask, and the anchor at the studio, who was Katie Tur, was just asking in a tone of just stunned bewilderment, "Don't these people care?" Referring to all those beach goers or lake goers who were not wearing masks. "Don't these people care about their own health?" And the reporter, with his mask on, is, "Oh no, it apparently doesn't appear to be important to them." And if you look behind the reporter, over his shoulder, you could see a man with his cell phone out, filming. And then the reporter caught a glimpse of him and told his cameraman to pan over to him. So the camera pans right over to the guy. And the reporter says, "See right here, this guy's not wearing a mask either." And this was awesome. The man then shot back, "Neither is your cameraman. Half your crew's not wearing masks," he says to this reporter. From the reaction and the body language, this reporter knew he'd been busted. It was hilarious. Hypocrisy on full display. You know, it is worth some legitimate debate how effective these masks are. A lot of times you hear people saying, "Well, you might be an asymptomatic carrier of this, and even though you yourself might not get sick, you might carry the disease and infect a vulnerable person, a person who is elderly, a person whose health is compromised somehow, comorbidities." And always, the people who are out to shame you are going to talk about science and accuse you of being scientifically illiterate or stupid or heartless or some combination of the three if you choose not to wear a mask. Well, let's talk about science. Let's talk about asymptomatic people. People who have the disease but aren't showing any symptoms. This is a study on the infectivity of asymptomatic SARS-CoV-2 carriers. This was published on May the 13th. The background: an ongoing outbreak of coronavirus disease 2019, or also known as COVID-19, has spread around the world. It is debatable whether asymptomatic COVID-19 virus carriers are contagious. We report here a case of the asymptomatic patient and present clinical characteristics of 455 contacts, which aims to study the infectivity of asymptomatic carriers. The result: the median contact time for patients was 4 days, and that for family members was 5 days. Cardiovascular disease accounted for 25% among original diseases of patients. Apart from hospital staffs, both patients and family members were isolated medically. During the quarantine, 7 patients plus 1 family member appeared new respiratory symptoms, where fever was the most common one. The blood counts in most contacts were within a normal range. All CT images showed no sign of COVID-19 infection. No severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 infections was detected in 455 contacts by nucleic acid test. That's the RT-PCR test. That's the most common and most reliable test. So the conclusion, in summary: all the 455 contacts were excluded from SARS-CoV-2 infection, and we conclude that the infectivity of some asymptomatic SARS-CoV-2 carriers might be weak. The report goes on and on. I've got the whole thing printed out. It's 15 pages, but that's essentially the upshot of this. So that's one of the chief arguments of people who are eager to shame anybody who doesn't want to wear a mask and who exercises their personal right not to. That you might pick something up from an asymptomatic person, you might be asymptomatic yourself, but you're putting others at risk. And they say that this is just a foregone conclusion, that there's no arguing that point. This information is out there. It's available to anyone. What I think this illustrates, though, is that people really aren't interested in the science. The mask, in many cases, has become just the latest badge of moral superiority. We're not seeing people out there shaming others and expressing hostility out of a genuine concern for public health. We're seeing a bunch of people who were just predisposed to shame and be hostile to begin with. And this provides their latest excuse, conveniently cloaked in this altruistic concern for public health. This is just the latest incarnation of virtue signaling. If you want to wear the mask, go right ahead. I would never feel inclined to ridicule anybody for wearing one or for not wearing one. But the moment you start expressing this kind of anger, and as in the case of this MSNBC reporter, that kind of blatant hypocrisy, then that kind of shows your true motivations. You're not actually concerned about helping people. You just get off on shaming others. It's your favorite pastime. And it's really kind of sickening to me to see the way, in so many ways, this pandemic is giving people a new vehicle for their own moral narcissism. Hey, we don't want the solution to be worse than the problem, and it's things like this that make the solution worse. Thanks for listening. Be good to each other.